Last night, two people that work for the Israeli embassy were shot. Two Israeli embassy staff members were shot and killed outside of the Capitol Jewish Museum in D.C. This is breaking news. And a lot of people instantly rushed online to get their thoughts out.
Last night, two Israeli embassy staff members were shot and killed as they left an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum. Now, video from the scene shows the arrest of a man who appears to be the shooter. The victims have been identified as a young couple who were set to be engaged. They were killed right across the street from an FBI field office and less than a mile from the U.S. Capitol.
Hey, Gail, the Capitol Jewish Museum is that smaller brick building behind me, if you look closely at your screen. And that police tape is hanging from the side of the Washington, D.C. FBI field office. That's how high security.
Have you seen everyone trying to call it a false flag event? I think people's brains have been cooked, but I get why people think that. There are a million different opinions out there. Some people think, oh, it's great. I'm glad that this happened. Other people say this is the most heinous act of violence that has ever taken place. Please do not pay attention to the dead Palestinian children, that Israel is melting at a rapid clip, and instead talk about this. There are plenty of people who are using this as an opportunity to be like, this is a heinous anti-Semitic act of violence. Everyone that says free Palestine should be instantly jailed, all this stuff. Ultimately, I mean, look, this is, let's just go through the details and I'll give you my perspective, okay? What the fuck does set to be engaged mean? Are they engaged to be married? Said to be engaged is they're humanizing the victims in this situation. That's why this is how it goes. Obviously, there's no such humanization, of course, when the victim of an Islamophobic attack is a 7-year-old child, and that doesn't happen obviously in the United States of America. But the reason why they're talking about it is because he bought a ring to basically announce his engagement to the girl that he was dating. They're both in the Israeli embassy. But the reason why people are like saying this is a psyop is for two reasons. I don't think it is, for the record, and I'll tell you why. The reason why people think it's a psyop is because this happened right after the Israeli occupying force shot at diplomats in the West Bank, and immediately people with maybe a little bit too much pattern recognition turn around and go, ooh, that's probably a way, like they probably executed these like low-level Israeli diplomats so that they can like change the SEO or whatever when people type in Israeli diplomat attack or something. And no, that's not the case. That's ridiculous. Or, people think it's a psyop, or people think it's a psyop because like they're just like sacrificing low-level Israel embassy workers because they claim they want to change like the victimhood narrative back to Israel or something. But of course, there are a lot of pro-Israeli accounts that are using this opportunity, as they use any opportunity, to turn around and say, oh my God, we have to stop people from saying free Palestine, which is ridiculous. Suck my dick, okay? Yeah, you're right. You know, because of this incident, we should actually just close our eyes to the genocide that Israel is doing. Yeah, that seems like a reasonable bargain.
A fatal shooting outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C.
Damn, he hit that Jewish hard.
Wednesday night. Law enforcement says prior to the attack, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside the museum.
He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents. After the shooting, the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by event security.
This morning, the Israeli Foreign Ministry named the two victims as Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, embassy staff workers in Washington.
I don't know about the girl, but I know the dude's background. I've looked into the dude's background, and the dude is like a Jews for Jesus guy. He is a German Christian originally, which makes the story even crazier when people are like, oh, dude, this is an anti-Semitic hate crime. It's like, bro, very clearly, the dude even wrote a manifesto. The dude that did it wrote a manifesto, and it's entirely about Israel. Okay, like entirely about Israel. The victims are Israeli embassy workers, and not only that, but also like one of the dudes that work for the Israeli embassy is a German Christian, like a German Christian that was, I guess he like changed his name or something. I don't know what the was going on there. Like but regardless, this could have been anti-Semitic or not. I don't know. Could he have known that they were staff, or did you just target random people leaving the museum? Impossible to tell. And the possibility of backlash from the state is terrifying. This is how Kristallnacht started. Exactly. And yes, I don't think that the person who, like, the gunman knew exactly who the he was targeting. And the reality of the matter is, I'll give you an example. Yeah, the dude also volunteered for the IDF, even though he's, dude, I thought they were Israelis. What the no. Yeah. By the way, he was Christian. She was an American Jew. None of them were Israeli, yet they are literally working for Israel. Insane that these people don't have to register as foreign agents. I know, it's kind of the point. This is how it works.
Man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem.
The suspect, who's now in custody, was identified by police as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. The FBI says it's investigating ties to potential terrorism and his motivation.
The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody.
Witnesses say Rodriguez was with them inside the museum after the shooting before they realized who he was.
So about 10 minutes later, when the cops actually came in, he said, "I did this." He said, "Sir, I'm unarmed." He put his hands up. He grabbed a red keffiyeh out of his pocket and started the Free Palestine chants.
President Trump responded to the shooting.
He dude, oh my God. He hit like every button he possibly could. It's just, if he had yelled from the river to the sea, that would have nuked him. No, dude, him saying free Palestine and also having like the red keffiyeh on the ground, like all of that is so perfectly placed for the government to say, if you have a red keffiyeh, you're going to jail. You're a terrorist. If you say free Palestine, you're going to jail. You're a terrorist. Like it is, I don't think it's a false flag or anything, but it's so perfectly designed for the government to utilize in an effort to stop people from saying, like, Israel, please stop murdering children. Like, it is so perfectly designed. Okay? Anyway, let's continue.
Posting these horrible DC killings, based obviously on anti-Semitism, must end. Adding, hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA.
Dude, you are Donald Trump. What are you saying? Donald Trump saying this is like Adolf Hitler saying this, okay? What do you mean hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA? You literally won on hatred and radicalism. You are Donald Trump. Did you forget who you are? Yesterday, he literally was talking about how there's a white genocide happening in South Africa. It is literally a white nationalist conspiracy that virtually no one believes. White people in South Africa don't believe it. Only a select handful neo-Nazis advance this conspiracy theory, and Donald Trump is one of those guys now.
Trump contacted Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was with the Israeli ambassador.
Together with President Trump, our Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will stand together tall and firm, and we will confront this moral depravity without fear and with determination.
Israel's prime minister says they are strengthening security arrangements at their posts at their Israeli government facilities across the globe. An initial search by law enforcement.
The event was not a Jewish LGBTQ event. Earlier, Chatter lied. It was an event for Israeli diplomats. AJC's access, young diplomats reception. That's what it was, right? The American Jewish Center or whatever. Like that's what here. AJC's event targeted in DC shooting was AJC's Young Diplomats reception about response to humanitarian crises. The event Wednesday night at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. outside of the deadly shooting. Also, don't say the person was lying, okay? Don't immediately assume that they were lying. They could have been misguided, okay? Calm down. Yeah, I don't endorse the notion of it being a false flag, but here's the video of him being apprehended. I know, I saw this, which is why I was like, this is insane. Like the way, like, look, there is a... Like the guy picks up the keffiyeh from the ground. This isn't even the best version of this video. Because like, I think he literally takes it out of his pocket or something and like tosses it.
Free Palestine! Free!
By the way, one of the craziest parts about this in this video is that there are dudes there. This guy just shot people. He is turning himself in. He says, free Palestine. And there's still motherfuckers there that are going from Hamas. I was like, bro, do you have no sense of safety? Like, how embedded is this in your mind? Like, automatically, you hear someone go free Palestine, and you go from Hamas. It blew my mind. I was like, dude, no sense of being. No, you're just like, at that point, you are just a vehicle for Israel. You are in DC as an American citizen, and you are so invested in like behaving like a bot that you hear free Palestine, and immediately, even after, like, you don't know what the situation is. You don't know if there's a bomb there. You don't know if there's other shooters there. You are literally just auto Hasbara bot mode. You hear free Palestine, you go, from Hamas. You know what I'd be doing in that situation? Running away. That's what I would be doing. I wouldn't be like immediately, time for the retort.
Free Palestine from Hamas.
Like, what? Like, that's insane. That's insane.
Free Palestine from Hamas.
They are definitely going to start clamping down on Palestine protests just before Israel's displacement plan. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's like saying that they're going to clamp down on pro-Palestinian protests now is kind of funny too, because it's like, now, you mean, you know, they have been doing that already pretty aggressively. As a matter of fact, they've been doing that. So I don't think that that's like anything new. They'll just like escalate it. But yeah, here, I'll give you the analog here, okay? Luigi Mangione was an adventurist. He had obviously a goal. And because so many people had been directly victimized by healthcare in this country, that as soon as we knew who the victim was, everybody immediately understood what the motives were. Allegedly, Luigi Mangione, despite being an adventurist, had a clear-cut agenda that most Americans very quickly understood. Even if they didn't agree with the methods, like, they kind of understood where the resentment was coming from. I wouldn't say this situation is comparable, and here's why. Because Luigi Mangione, allegedly, but when Luigi Mangione targeted the United Healthcare CEO, that was the United Healthcare CEO. Luigi Mangione didn't go and kill the I don't know, reception desk worker at United Healthcare and then turned around and said free healthcare, right? And that's the major difference. If Luigi had done it, of course. Allegedly. I'm saying allegedly, Luigi Mangione, who I think is an innocent man and is unjustly maligned, if allegedly he had done this act, that would be the equivalent to what took place here. Now, I'm not going to entertain the emotional blackmail that Israel defenders, who very clearly don't care about victims of Islamophobia, or even these people that died and simply only care about defending Israel's interests, the emotional blackmail that they are going to try to enforce here at a time when Israel has very openly stated their desire for permanent ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip. That's not going to happen. Okay, so don't expect that from me. I'm not entertaining that. Okay, having said that, that's my position. I explained it to you. This is, going after low-level people, and it's most likely going to be used against the Palestinian movement. But I'm also not going to sit around and constantly fucking wail away either. Okay? Did you see PSL National's tweet? Yes. So the alleged perpetrator yesterday was a former PSL member. So of course, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. For those of you who don't know what PSL is, it's the Party for Socialism and Liberation. We reject any attempt to associate the PSL with the DC shooting. Elias Rodriguez is not a member of the PSL. He had a brief association with one branch of the PSL that ended in 2017. We know of no contact with him in over 7 years. We have nothing to do with this shooting and do not support it. So I think it's of course appropriate to say this. Like, it's appropriate for them to come out and say this. And that's also part of the reason why I talked to a bunch of my other friends as well this morning. Like, no person, especially no person like immediately affiliated with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, who are fantastic organizers overall, no organizer is going to do something like this. And no organizer is going to associate their organization with something like this, because organizers understand that this level of association with an act such as this one will be catnip for the federal government, who is already using every fucking avenue they can to clamp down on free speech and free association. So before people get like in their feelings and go, what the fuck, I can't believe that they're saying this, like, don't be a fucking moron. They're probably still going to aggressively come after PSL anyway. They're probably aggressively going to come after any and every pro-Palestinian person, myself included. They've already even started coming after myself, as far as I understand. It's pretty crazy. It's crazy times that we are a part of, but, it is what it is. I'm going to keep saying the fucking truth. If you think that I'm going to stop saying the truth about Israel, about what Israel is doing, which is a live streamed child holocaust that Israel is committed to. And the only way that they are able to do this is by unlimited munitions that they get from the United States of America. If you think I'm going to stop talking about that, you are out of your fucking mind.
Police have identified the suspect as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. After the shooting, he entered the building, and at first, witnesses said he appeared distressed and gave him water.
The security guard happened to let this guy in. I guess they were thinking that he was a victim. So about 10 minutes later, when the cops actually came in, he said, "I did this." He said, "Sir, I'm unarmed." He put his hands up.
And then he reaches into his bag and pulls out a keffiyeh and says, "I did it. I did this for Gaza."
That traditional keffiyeh scarf to show solidarity with the people of Gaza was handed to police as the suspect was taken in.
Like, either this is an adventurist who fucking thought that he would get like Luigi Mangione level prominence off of this or something, or just a dude who thought that this was the best possible thing to do. But like I'm not Mr. False Flag at all, but like every single thing that he did in the aftermath of the shooting is so fucking crazy that it's like, you could not have fucking designed a incident like this. You could not have designed a better false flag incident like this. I'm not saying it is a false flag incident at all. I'm not saying that. I think this is just a one dude who is genuine in his actions and maybe, a little bit brain broken. Okay. But it is crazy. This was legit the worst thing that could happen to the movement. No, it's not. And you guys need to stop doing that. That's another thing that I don't like either. Stop. Have some conviction. Have conviction. Assume that your fellow man is not like a brain broken child. Okay, I ask you, does this change what Israel is doing on the ground in Gaza? Does this change the dynamic of what Israel is doing on the ground, which is an ethnic cleansing campaign? If the answer to that is no, then stop leaning into a nihilistic attitude. Stop leaning into a pessimistic attitude, okay?
Today, the FBI raided the home in Chicago where the suspect Elias Rodriguez is believed to live. He wasn't on any police watch list, but he was.
It's also extra crazy. Again, it's extra fucking nutty. One of the first victims post October 7 in the Western world was a 7-year-old child, okay, that got stabbed to death by his landlord. Like, nobody gives a fuck when Muslim kids, babies are fucking murdered, okay? Nobody cares. Nobody cares about Islamophobia, not even a little bit. Like, what are we talking about here, dude? It's crazy. Like, think about the universal condemnation. Not my expectation isn't that like people aren't going to condemn this. Of course, it's a fucking murder in the middle of the night, okay? Obviously, in the like right steps away from the fucking White House. Like, yeah, of course, it is worthy of condemnation from politicians especially. It's just that it is not even remotely comparable. Not even like when Muslims or Arabs are fucking murdered or are victims of hate crimes, it does not get elevated to this fucking status at all. Not only that, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is specifically because we're talking about Islamophobia in the Western world. This is before we even talk about what Israel is doing, because Israel is a criminal entity, okay? That's it. And defenders of Israel, no matter where they are, no matter what their background is, are defending a Nazi state doing a live streamed Holocaust. This is the reality. Anyone that tries to move the attention away from said reality, is just fucking delusional or cynical. That is the main problem. Yeah. And here, this is the expectation that these people are actually important or noteworthy is gone. 61 martyrs as a result of Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip since dawn today. The names of 2 Israeli embassy staff are all over the global media, where you won't find the names of any of the 61 people counting and killed by the Israeli army today. Those people also had dreams. Those people that were killed were also human beings. Those people also probably wanted to maybe one day get engaged to their fiance. They had girlfriends and boyfriends. They had mothers. They had fathers. They had their favorite books. But we don't even think about that. Because there is no fucking parity here with the humanity. Palestinians are never treated as humans. A single death is a tragedy. A million deaths is a statistic. And this is precisely how Israel operates. And yes, I saw his account. His last retweet was literally denying the famine that was taking place in Gaza. This doesn't mean like, I'm not saying like, oh, it's justified, whatever. That's not my point. But understand that like the hyper focus on this, or the attention being placed on this, is very cynical. It's not because these guys are pacifists, okay? They're not. They're not fucking pacifists. They're not humanists. They simply want to defend Israel, and they will use any victim to push for that cause. What a lot of Israel defenders are doing is just trying to engage in emotional blackmail, but also simultaneously demand deplatforming of anyone and everyone that has ever said anything negative about Israel. This is a state. A state represents a political ideology. A state is comprised of individuals. A state is not a representation of religion. ISIS is not representative of Islam, neither is Saudi Arabia representative of Islam, and Israel is not representative of Judaism.
Was once a member of a left-wing group known for sharing anti-Israeli rhetoric, and posted a manifesto on X last night condemning Israel and referring to an...
Yeah, he defended the murder of the Red Cross workers, celebrated the murder of Hassam. Like, of course he did. He works for the fucking Israeli embassy. He is the dude that died is literally this is the dude that died was demonstrated in the classic case of the zealotry of a convert, zealotry of the revert. Basically, if roles were reversed, he would be treated, if this wasn't about Israel and if Judaism was not applied as like a defensive shield here, you would look at him like Johnny Jihad. You know what I mean? Like the classic like Salafist white guy who reverts to Islam and then goes and joins ISIS. Okay, that's because that's what he did. That was his. Be careful with using the post facto uncovered posts of the victims in any way, even if you say it's not a justification. There's zero evidence the shooter knew the people. Yeah, no, I know that. It's not a part of this calculation at all. I don't know what the shooter's calculation is. I suspect that he saw that it was a diplomat event and was like, maybe I'll be able to get a fucking Israeli diplomat here. That was his goal. That was ultimately his goal. This is adventurism regardless. It's not a way to build a cohesive movement, a coherent movement. That's why while Channel 4 is actively trying to bring this back to like PSL, for example, no fucking organizer would ever do such a thing. No organizer would ever do such a thing. I'm simply talking about the difference between like this and Luigi Mangione, for example, and also simultaneously talking about the media narratives and what trappings not to fall into. The manifesto is indeed that of the Israeli embassy shooter. He previously used his email address, elias94@gmail.com, for the account Kyoto Loather, it got suspended in the meantime, he claims banned after DMing death threats to Will Stansel. Okay, well, we can't actually read it from that any longer because his account got nuked. But here is the alleged manifesto written by Elias Rodriguez. Kenny Clips has it. Suspecting the killing of 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. I believe the document to be authentic for several reasons, including the fact that it is signed by Rodriguez and timestamped well before he was named by law enforcement or any media. I am publishing it here not to glorify the violence, which I find abhorrent and condemn, but so the public can better understand the truth of what happened. Refusing to confront the content of these texts often creates an information vacuum that is quickly filled by hoax documents, conspiracy theories, or selective leaks from authorities that can distort the facts. I believe that sunlight is the best disinfectant, especially when politics is involved, as the document makes it clear the case here. Metropolitan Police Chief Pamela A. Smith identified Rodriguez as a 30-year-old man from Chicago who she says shouted "Free, Free Palestine" at the scene. The manifesto echoes this message, citing the war in Gaza as a central grievance and framing the killings as an act of political protest. Below is the document in full. Before reading the manifesto, I think it's important to remind people that adventurism and propaganda of the deed is overwhelmingly ineffective as tactics. Anarchists were wrong about adventurism, such as ad hoc actions mainly just gives the state an excuse to do repression. Yes, I, of course, will not stand for any kind of state repression in this circumstance. Halantar is a word that means something like thunder or lightning. In the wake of an act, people look for a text to fix its meaning, so here's an attempt. The atrocities committed by Israelis against Palestine defy description and defy quantification. Instead of reading descriptions mostly, we watch them unfold on video, sometimes live. After a few months of rapidly mounting death tolls, Israel had obliterated the capacity to even continue counting the dead, which has served its genocide well. At the time of the writing, the Gaza Health Ministry records 53,000 killed by traumatic force, at least 10,000 lie under rubble, and who knows how many thousands more dead of preventable disease, hunger, with tens of thousands now at the risk of imminent famine due to the Israeli blockade. All enabled by Western and Arab government complicity. The Gaza Information Office includes the 10,000 under the rubble with the dead in their own count. In news reports, there have been those 10,000 under the rubble for months now, despite the continual making of more rubble and repeated bombing of rubble again and again, and the bombings of tents amid the rubble. Like the Yemen death toll, which had been frozen at some few thousand for few years under the Saudi, US, UK bombardment before being belatedly revealed to stand at 500,000 dead. All of these figures are almost surely a criminal undercount. I have no trouble believing the estimates that put the toll at 100,000 or more. More have been murdered since March of this year than in the Protective Edge and Kaslet put together. These are two previous sieges that Israel implemented on Gaza in the past. What more at this point can one say about the proportion of mangled and burned and exploded human beings whom were children? We who let this happen will never deserve the Palestinians' forgiveness. They've let us know as much. An armed action is not necessarily a military action. It usually is not. Usually it is theater and a spectacle. A quality it shares with many unarmed actions. Nonviolent protests in the opening weeks of the genocide seem to signal some sort of turning point. Never before had so many tens of thousands joined the sides of Palestinians in the streets across the West. Never before had so many American politicians been forced to concede that, rhetorically at least, the Palestinians were human beings too. But thus far, the rhetoric has not amounted to much. The Israelis themselves boast about their own shock at the free hand the Americans have given them to exterminate the Palestinians. Public opinion has shifted against the genocidal apartheid state, and the American government has simply shrugged. They'll do without public opinion then, criminalize it where they can, suffocate it with bland reassurances that they're doing all they can to restrain Israel where it cannot criminalize protests outright. Aaron Bushnell and others sacrificed themselves in the hopes of stopping the massacre, and the state works to make us feel their sacrifice was made in vain, that there is no hope in escalating for Gaza, and no point in bringing the war home. We can't let them succeed. Their sacrifices were not made in vain. The impunity that representatives of our government feel at abetting the slaughter should be revealed as an illusion then. The impunity we see is the worst for those of us in immediate proximity to the genocidaires. A surgeon who treated victims of the Mayan genocide by the Guatemalan state recounts an instant in which he was operating on a patient who'd been critically injured during a massacre when, suddenly, armed gunmen entered the room and shot the patient to death on his operating table, laughing as they killed him. The physician said the worst part was seeing the killers, well known to him, openly swaggered down local streets in the years after. Elsewhere, a man of conscience once attempted to throw Robert McNamara off a Martha's Vineyard-bound ferry into the sea, incensed at the same impunity and arrogance he saw in that butcher of Vietnam as he sat in the ferry's lounge laughing with his friends. The man took issue with McNamara's very posture, telling you, my history is fine, and I can be slumped over a bar like this with my good friend Ralph here, and you'll have to lump it. The man did not succeed in heaving McNamara off a catwalk into the water. The former Secretary of State managed to cling to the railing and clamber back to his feet, but the assailant explicated the value of the attempt by saying, well, I got him outside, just the two of us, and suddenly his history wasn't so fine, was it? A word about the morality of armed demonstration. Those of us against the genocide take satisfaction in arguing that the perpetrators and abettors have forfeited their humanity. I sympathize with this viewpoint and understand its value in soothing the psyche, which cannot bear to accept the atrocities it witnesses, even mediated through the screen. But inhumanity has long since shown itself to be shockingly common, mundane, prosaically human. A perpetrator may then be a loving parent, a filial child, a generous and charitable friend, an amiable stranger, capable of moral strength at times when it suits him, and sometimes even when it does not, and yet be a monster all the same. Humanity does not exempt one from accountability. The action would have been morally justified taken 11 years ago during Protective Edge, around the time I personally became acutely aware of our brutal conduct in Palestine. But I think to most Americans, such an action would have been illegible, would seem insane. I am glad that today, at least, there are many Americans for which the action will be highly legible and in some funny way, the only sane thing to do. I love you, mom, dad, baby sis, the rest of my familia, including you. And then it says, oh, censored. Free Palestine, Elias Rodriguez. Now, the reason why I read this manifesto, and we have obviously read the manifestos of white nationalist shooters as well, is oftentimes to understand the mindset of this person, especially when there are a lot of mainstream narratives that will immediately design an alternative scenario. I don't think that this person acted out on an anti-Semitic desire or is a fucking Nazi or anything like that. But that is dangerous in a separate way. The very fact that a person who is this legible, who has their shit together enough to be able to write a fucking, write prose such as this one, in the act of vengeance, in the act of vigilante justice in his own mind, is meaningful in and of itself. It's meaningful because it means that there are people who haven't fucking lost their minds that also see and are choosing to take action such as this, taking action such as this that is terrifying for the average person, okay? Regardless of what their position is. The reason why I'm reading this, the reason why I read this, is specifically so that you understand that, like, there is a shit ton of people that are like, no, this is done, this is conducted. The shooter's actions were directly about finding some Jewish victim to kill. It's deliberate. It's very clear. It's clear what his reasoning is. You don't have to agree with what he did. And I'm not urging you to, okay? I'm not saying that at all, but it is deliberate. Now, ask yourself why the media is not saying that the shooter did this because they were distraught with the violence that they had seen unfolded in Gaza. By his own admission, they don't have an issue saying the shooter is a fucking white supremacist when the shooter is a white supremacist. When a shooter writes a manifesto and they're a fucking white supremacist, the media will at least take parts of that manifesto to dive deep into the consciousness of the fucking stochastic terrorist. They don't have an issue then. They will openly be like, this is a white supremacist shooter. He went to a fucking area where there were black and brown people, and they wanted to kill as many black and brown people as possible to fucking spark like a race riot or whatever fucking dumb shit that these crackheads believe, okay? The reason why the media won't actually fucking cover the purpose here is because they are worried about copycats, number one, even though they're obviously worried about copycats in every single circumstance. That's an understandable fear to have. But more importantly than copycats, the reason why the motivation here is left to whatever the Israeli government is saying, even though they're fucking thousands of miles away, the reason why the narrative is set in this way is because this, if shown to the average American is not exactly favorable on Israel. The average American is not exactly going to, they're already selfish. They're already violent. We are predisposed to violence in this country. We have an incredible amount of tolerance for violent acts. That's the reason why they don't want to fucking, mention this shit. That's the reason why they won't talk about this. In any case, ultimately, knowing full well what the government will do with this information, knowing full well what institutions are doing with this information, organizations like the ADL are trying to get out of this information, two things should come to mind. One, be careful with what you say, even if you are exaggerating or even if you're joking, especially if you have even an anonymous account, because anything and everything you say will always be used against you. That's number one. And number two, do not fucking allow any oxygen for victimhood narratives as it pertains to Israel. Okay, that's it. The idea that this is a neo-Nazi that came after Jewish people deliberately looking for Jews to kill, like all of that stuff is incorrect. This is not a value judgment on the actions of the shooter, but it's obvious that this was a person that was brain broken by a lot of the realities that are unfolding in Gaza. And now it's being used by those who seek to defend Israel to try and turn around and further prosecute those who say free Palestine. So many of the Hasbro accounts on the timeline are either A, coming after me and numerous other pro-Palestinian content creators and speakers, but they're also just saying insane shit like the keffiyeh is actually the Nazi armband, or the mention of free Palestine should be fucking considered like it's, the mention of free Palestine should be considered as though in the same wavelength as like a neo-Nazi sentiment.
We have two people dead in D.C. We have 50,000 dead in Gaza. And how many children starved to death last night? In 1956, Israel invaded Sinai. They invaded Gaza. The United States president at the time, Dwight Eisenhower, put his foot down, and he told the French and the British, get the heck out of the Suez Canal, and he told Israel to get the heck out of Sinai and out of Gaza. Now, where would we be today?
This person is the DC shooter's neighbor. This is the DC shooter's neighbor. This is what he's saying.
If we had a president that could have said that 2 years ago.
Excuse me, can you describe again the Elias personality that you met?
Quiet and friendly. Quiet and friendly. Yeah, yeah.
What's your age, if you don't mind us asking?
71. Yeah. Yeah. I'm the guy with all the signs in the window.
What do you hope happens next?
Ceasefire. No more deaths. No more deaths in D.C. No more deaths in Gaza.
What about with your neighbor?
I don't know.
If you could.
You always bring up how our politicians don't respond to this 80-20 issue of stopping weapon shipment to Israel. I think a lot of this reflects that feeling of disenfranchisement people are feeling right now, especially this being a gross, condemnable act. Yeah, that's what it is. That is what it is. The reality of the matter is there's only so much death and destruction people watch unfold in front of their eyes, so much moral culpability they experience. And when they go through those motions, like there is inevitably always going to be, especially in a country as violent as America, especially in a country where the violent narratives are so normalized, there's going to be someone who takes matters in their own fucking hands and engages in vigilante justice. The purpose of avoiding vigilante justice, the purpose of demanding a ceasefire or legal organs of justice to actually take control over the situation of Israel's endless murder and death and destruction is so that there isn't chaos, so that there isn't vigilante justice. It's the same thing I said after Luigi Mangione. While these two things are not comparable in that same vein, what did I say? It's like the way to avoid this kind of chaotic situation from taking place is to ensure that people have, to ensure the moral option, which is to allow people to have health care.
Say something to him right now. What would you want to communicate to him? What would you have said if you, like you said earlier, could have talked to him?
Oh, I would have repeated what I've already said. Guns and bombs are not going to end this genocide.